Hello and welcome to BIZ, your work life sorted. I'm Vernem.
And I'm Lisa Lee, and today we are talking about AI, which I feel like is either your best friend at work right now or
Yes.
a source of low-key panic, or maybe a little bit of both
Yes,
at
do
the same
not
time.
turn this episode off. We're going to help you.
We need to talk about it. Today, we're unpacking a few things because the real advantage with AI isn't about using it to do more work. It's about using it to do work at a higher level. And
Yes.
that's what we actually want to get into in this episode.
Exactly. And we are joined by Dr. Amantha Imber, who is an organisational psychologist, best-selling author, and the CEO of Inventium AI.
Let's get into it.
Amantha, I want to start jumping straight into it from the perspective of someone who's kind of new to the AI world. Can you give us a bigger picture on how you believe AI will actually be impacting jobs?
Well, anyone that can give you a confident answer to that question is a liar, because the truth is no one knows. But a good rule of thumb is if your job primarily involves you sitting at a computer and doing computer-based tasks, your job is far more at risk, and the types of things that you do are far more at risk than someone that has a lot of human-to-human interaction. Because right now, like, the human-to-human interaction is generally the stuff that AI is not replacing, you know, where you need to influence, where you need empathy, where you need understanding, and just where you need to communicate person to person. So as a general rule of thumb, it's a fair way of looking at these things.
There's this great study that's been going around at the moment, and I found it so fascinating. I'm sure you've seen it, but for anyone else who hasn't, it's from MIT. And what they actually did was they grouped students to write an essay. One was purely using ChatGPT, one was using Google or search engines, and the other one was writing it entirely on their own from scratch. I don't know anyone who's done that recently, writing something entirely on their own without any research. Anyway, those three groups, right? And then what they did is they monitored their brains using EEG scans, and the differences were completely striking. The people writing without AI showed the strongest brain connectivity, and then the ChatGPT users showed the weakest. And about 83% of the ChatGPT users couldn't quote a single sentence from what they'd just written. And so the researchers were calling it cognitive debt. And I think it's really interesting based on what you just said around the human-to-human skills, the critical thinking, because when a tool does the thinking for you, your brain starts thinking less. So we really need to double down on those. What are you seeing in terms of how people are using AI at a higher level, right? Because this is not about just writing off AI in general and saying don't use it. There are ways that we can use it at a higher level. What do you see that to be?
So the key there is how we're using the AI. Like, to take an example, a couple of days ago, I was working with 200 teachers at quite a well-known school in Victoria and training them in AI, but also helping them think through the massive implications that we have for education. Like, if you're a school student or a uni student, or if you're just learning and you're just getting the AI to do the work for you and do the thinking for you, then of course that is not going to be good for how you think and how you are, educating yourself and how you're remembering things. But if we can use the AI in a different way, if we can use the AI to act as an individualized tutor, if you like, to not give us the answers, but to prompt us to think through things and even test us and critique our work, then what research shows is that it actually leads to, for example, better exam performance, certainly, and better retention of things that we're trying to learn.
I really love that you've shared that example, because when you see these research studies come out like the one I shared, it becomes so binary in terms of don't use ChatGPT because you're not going to have a brain. But what you're saying there is like, yes, use it because you can use it to train the thinking as well. And I love that example.
The workplace is changing. Nowadays, it's not about doing more, it's about doing what actually matters. And that comes down to better skills and sharper thinking. That's where Open Universities Australia comes in. They partner with Australia's leading unis with access to thousands of online courses in one place, including postgrad degrees to level up your career. Plus, their student advisors offer free, unbiased advice on your study options and can enrol you directly into uni. Your journey starts with Open Universities Australia at open.edu.au.
So what do you think is the difference then between, because you obviously work with a lot of organisations, you have an amazing course, I'm halfway through it myself. What's the difference between the people who get real leverage from AI versus the ones who are just using it to just pump out sloppy emails and LinkedIn posts?
Well, firstly, they're investing time in educating themselves. For those that are working within an organization, hopefully your organization is funding some kind of training. That is a really good start. But once you've got that AI literacy built, then the next step is actually going, well, how do I leverage that? Like, yeah, sure, I can write an email fast. And if I know how to use AI well, I can actually write a half decent email and do that pretty quickly. But the real value comes in actually looking at what are the different tasks that I do every day or every week, those tasks that are repetitive and probably dull and maybe mind numbing. And the whole task might not be like that, but certain elements of it might be. And they might be quite easy to go, well, actually, I think that if I train an AI to do this, it can do a better job. And like we're obviously talking on a podcast today, I host a podcast called How I Work. And, certain parts of that workflow that you have when you produce a podcast have been given to AI. Like, for example, the show notes, like, I don't think anyone is really caring too much if show notes are well written by AI. But previously, that was quite a time-consuming task in terms of what listeners are reading in their podcast feed, in terms of what can they expect in this episode. So, for me, for example, on How I Work, I've written a skill in Claude that is a specific skill that I have trained to write show notes of how I like them to be written for how I work. A human, generally me, will absolutely go over those show notes. I would never put anything out into the world like written comms that I haven't, as a human, gone through. But that, as one example, is probably saving me about 20 minutes per week or per episode.
I think what I've found is that through my learning around AI, it's only as good as what you put into it. So if you put shit in, you get shit out.
Yeah.
And I sat down for a weekend, this is last weekend, trying to understand and like build my learning around Claude Cowork. And exactly what you said there, what I did, and this is my use case, was I wanted to ask me 50 questions about my job and my role and what my week looks like, and effectively interview me, because I wanted it to think about how I could best work with it and give me some suggestions at the end of it. So what I'm taking out of...
So you're using AI to
interview me.
To interview you to use AI.
Yes. So the piece was like, okay, I am this is what my week looks like, this is how I work, these are all the different things that I juggle. I want you to ask me 50 questions about this so you can completely understand. Amantha, this is probably not a great prompt, but we can work on it. So you can understand what my week looks like and how you might be able to best support me with some more automated routine tasks.
Yeah.
And then we went through that and it was a real interview process. But I think what you're saying there, Amantha, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that this is about how we apply some critical thinking to the tool that we're using.
100%. And Lisa, I love that example that you gave. And certainly Claude Cowork, we could geek out on that, but I'm just going to keep it to sort of, the more general chatbotty things that most people are using. And one of the things that is super important to get good output from AI is giving it context. So, in 2023, 2024, most of the talk was around prompts and prompt engineering and writing great prompts. And, look, that matters to an extent. Generally AI is going to be your best prompt writer. So please just outsource your prompt writing to AI. Like, Lisa, in that example, you could type in that prompt and then say to your AI, well, can you please help me improve this prompt? And it will do a pretty good job of asking questions to flesh out that prompt. So then it's giving you better output, or certainly better stimulus in that interview. But what is a really good thing for people to do is ask the AI to interview them about the different roles that they play in work and produce a document that summarizes that. Because what you will find to get better output from AI is giving it the context. So context engineering is a term that's been around for a couple of years, and arguably the context that the AI has about us, like what it knows about us and our work and our role and our, and the sorts of projects we're working on, it's going to be infinitely better at giving us better responses. So for me in my life, and we call them briefing documents at Inventium. So I've got several briefing documents that I will upload into various chat threads depending on the task that I'm doing. So, I've got a briefing document for the How I Work podcast, which goes, through what the podcast is about, different episodes, who the audience is, and so forth. I've got a briefing document for my work at Inventium as a CEO and who I lead and what our purpose is and what our company goals are and so forth. I've got a briefing document for my latest book, The Energy Game, which is all about recovering from burnout, and who the book's targeted at, the structure of the book, and so on. And depending on what I'm chatting on the AI about, I can upload into the very first prompt that I'm giving it just a Word document or a Markdown or text document, and I can go, this is what we're working on, and, help me create some, say for the book, like some different media angles for this particular media outlet, to pitch covering this book for this particular journalist, for example.
That's so smart. When it comes to the workplace, what are some of the most common mistakes you're seeing people making when they're using AI?
Goodness me, where do I start? Look, I think, it's funny because with most software these days, it's designed to be really intuitive and you can just pop in and generally just start working with it. And when you first open AI, you are met with a chatbot screen that says, essentially, ask me anything. And that is a huge problem of choice because it's like, well, where do I start? I could do anything. What do I do? How do I do that? And so we generally just get in there and start playing. And if you haven't been trained on things like the importance of context, then you're going to get pretty average results because essentially in terms of everything that AI has been trained on, it's the average. That is why if you were just going into AI and write me a 200-word LinkedIn post on, the benefits of working from home or whatever, you're going to get the average of the average. Right?
Yeah, right.
And that is where the problem lies. So educating yourself on how to get better outcomes from AI, it has to start there because it's not as intuitive as we would like to think it is.
Do you think AI, and I definitely have an opinion on this, but I want to hear what you think. Do you think AI is changing what we're being valued for at work?
Yes, 100%. So if you think about, I was going to say the olden days, but 2024, maybe 2023, last year.
A few months ago.
Yes.
Yes, the olden days of a few months ago. What we were valued for is volume and quantity. Like someone that produces a 50-slide strategy deck, people would go, oh man, you must have worked so hard. You must have done so much research. That's
someone who could just keep churning it out.
Exactly. Or in the case of Mamamia, oh man, you've written 50 online articles this week. You are a gun. But now, volume or quantity of what we're producing is no longer an indicator of how good we are, how good our work quality is, because AI allows us to create a huge volume of work and do it really, really quickly. And when companies are still relying on their old metrics in terms of, oh, wow, they produced X quantity of blah, particularly for knowledge workers, people that are, being paid for the value of their thinking, that's really problematic. And that leads to a massive AI slop problem where you're producing lots of stuff, but there hasn't been a lot of critical thinking or human judgment involved in the process. And then also that stuff presumably has to be read by other humans. And that is so disrespectful of their time if that's just all AI generated without that critical thinking from a human.
I want to take it back to I guess if you're new to AI and you've just opened up whatever program you're using, I think that initial part can be quite overwhelming, what to actually ask it. Do you have any, I guess, prompts on how to make a good prompt?
Well, the first thing I would get it to do is ask it to interview you about yourself. And you can simply type that in. So, you can give it a task. Always start with a task and a goal. I'm trying to create a document that summarizes what I do at work in my career. Can you work with me to create a prompt that will help produce this document? And then at the end of a prompt, you want to ask, the AI to ask me any questions, to be 95% confident of doing a great job. So, a real kind of like easy beginner hack is just whenever you're working with the AI, get it to ask you questions so that it can fill in the gaps of the task that you're trying to get it to do. So that's one thing. I would also say talk rather than type to your AI, particularly in an interview scenario where it's trying to learn about you. You probably will, or if you're new to AI, you won't, but you will see a couple of little icons in most AI platforms that are out there. You'll see a little microphone icon, and that is where you can talk to the AI, essentially dictate to it, and it will transcribe, and it will do that pretty accurately. So that is one way to avoid typing. I think pretty much every single human on earth can talk faster than they can type. Like for me, I can type quite fast. I think I'm about 80 words per minute, but I talk at about 140 words per minute. And I'm a fast talker, but still, most people can talk pretty fast. The other thing is there's generally a sound wave icon, and that is where you can literally have a voice-to-voice conversation with the AI. So if you're someone that's in the AI world, you absolutely will be doing this. If you're new to it, I highly recommend doing it that way because it will feel far more natural, and it's far easier to be interviewed when we're just having a chat as opposed to having to type in all these words. So that would be another piece of advice. It's so much easier working with AI when you're working in voice.
I totally agree. I started doing that at the start of this year, and now I'm such a slow typer because I just talk all my thoughts out.
Yeah.
Have you done this?
I haven't tried it yet, but I'm actually quite, I want to try it today.
Yeah. Amantha, is there a risk that relying too much on AI actually just makes us worse at our jobs?
Yes, 100% there is. And it's more where you're not bringing in that human judgment. So what certainly, my team at Inventium are seeing in the clients that we work with is that we are in the middle and in some organizations on the precipice of this AI slop avalanche where people are just drowning in AI written communications. And I think, we've all had this in our inbox where so many of the emails we are receiving are just absolute slop. They have been written by an AI with very little input from a human. And we're reading them and just going, oh my gosh, like should I even bother responding? Like a human has not intervened here. And if you multiply that out into all the different comms that you receive in an organization, whether they be emails, Slack messages, reports, presentation decks, everything. And if that's just been written by AI with no critical human judgment or thinking, then that is a pretty sad workplace to be working within.
I actually really hate the amount of emails I get, so I would love AI to draft my emails. But maybe not. Maybe make it sound human at the same time too.
Amantha, thank you so much for joining us. I feel like if you're new to AI, this is like the perfect interview to listen to actually not be scared.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
So now it's time for our favourite part of the episode, which is our out, which stands for one useful thing.
Yeah.
I reckon you should kick us off with this one.
Yeah, I learned so much from Amantha, but the one thing I took away from that conversation is something that I can always apply the next day. And Amantha suggested using AI to interview you so it can learn more about you. And I think that's the easiest way, even in person-to-person interaction, to get to know someone is to ask them questions. So you should do the same with AI. Get it to ask you questions so then it actually knows exactly what you want to tackle with using it.
Well, that was an awesome episode. Thank you so much, Amantha. On next week's episode, we're taking things beyond AI to unveil all the hidden work habits that are actually going to future-proof your career. Catch you then.
Bye.
Bye.